Well, what is up, everybody? Keith, a.k.a. Gator Guy 231, here to break down – I don't even know how many games that is anymore because every time that DraftKings tells us how many games it is, a few get canceled. So I think it's 11. Maybe by tomorrow it's 10. We'll just have to see. But the main slate of college football on Saturday, November 28th. Glad you guys found this video. Hope that I am able to help you all. And I hope you guys had a good Friday. I did really want to do a video, bad for it, but duties as a father and a son and a husband during the holiday season got the best of me. But I hope you all did well. Yeah, it was just some crazy news. So, make sure, I'll just say this, that you have some version of a news source out there. I can't remember the guy's name. Things like College Football Fantasy. I'll drop it in the details because the guy does such a good job. But that's close to a must follow for the advice. Also, obviously, if you are a premium member at FSI, we drop a lot of the info that we see in chat as well. Final thing before we get into picks, bottom right of the screen, hit that subscribe button. Truly does help. Costs you nothing. It helps FSI and all the free content that we're bringing on this YouTube channel out a ton. All right, enough of that. Let's get into the picks. So I think a big thing, I talked about it a lot in past weeks, but really picking out the games that have shootout potential. And I think we have a few. Before we get into the picks, let me just kind of mention those. So I think number one is Maryland versus Indiana. We know Indiana has just been a revelation this season. And Maryland, after just getting destroyed by Northwestern, now has two straight big games. Tagliavola looks a lot better. So I think that game has firework potential. The Iron Bowl, you never know. I really think that that Alabama is going to run away with it. So I'm not going to be too fond of that. You're not going to hear a lot coming from me on that. But the Egg Bowl, Mississippi State versus Ole Miss, there could be 110, 20 points if Mississippi State can keep it close. Holy crap, that game could go off. So I really like those two games. You're going to hear a lot of guys from those two. And look, if those both blow up, we could be sweating. So let's jump into the picks. Obviously, at the top, Matt Corral is one of the best QBs in college football for DFS. You aren't going to hear from the Heisman, but I think 10-1 is really steep. It's a great spot if you want to stack that game up. It's hard to do a full stack without the QB that has rushing upside and 600-yard potential, but 10-1's tough. Same deal with Kyle Trask. I love my boy. Obviously, Gator guy. I think he should be the leading candidate to win the Heisman, but 9,900 in a game that Florida should be out ahead of. Again, just a little tough. Last one, same with Fields. All these guys, even Lawrence, they're just really expensive. You've got to get minimum 35 from them, and realistically, you're looking for 40 plus to make it pay off, especially when there's other options. So let's kind of drop down those other options. I think Penix and Cunningham are fine second tier. But again, I think that you're going to want to drop all the way down. Then Mac Jones is the other one. Look, if you play any of those guys I just mentioned, it's fine. I am not sitting here telling you they're bad plays. I'm just telling you that you might, have used that salary better at a quarterback position where, look, if I can pay $6K and get 25 DK, that's a lot better than you paying $9,000 and getting 30. So, just keep that in mind. It's not just about the name recognition. So let's talk about a few guys that maybe could do it. So first one I think is Tagliavola from Maryland. Now, he started the season really struggling. I'm going to pull it up. Versus Northwestern. Let's see, that game was 14-25, a whopping negative 0.84. Then followed it up versus Minnesota, 47 DK, two on the ground. 3 in the air, and then versus Penn State, a really nice 18-26 with 3 touchdowns, 7-13 on the ground. Look, I think that Indiana is likely to be ahead, forcing Maryland to pass. So, a reason that I kind of like Tagliavola here at the price and giving this dual threat. You all know me by now. I'm really about getting these dual threat guys when they're available. I think Clifford is interesting. You would have told me where we're at in the season that I could get Clifford for 6,600 versus a Michigan defense that looks vulnerable. I would have locked him. I'm probably going to wait, but, it's a good play. Also in this range, I think, where is he? Spencer Sanders, I'm actually reading, is potentially ready to go and ready to start versus Texas Tech, a 6,500 dual threat. I think he's in play. But the guy I'm really, really hoping that we get KJ Costello still out, okay? And that we can fire up Will Rogers. Look, This is the game I told you about that I think could absolutely blow up. And Rodgers, in the Mike Leach system, 52 pass attempts last week versus Georgia. Guys. Like, Georgia is a top defense. 41 of 52, 336 yards. That's a large product of Mike Leach, versus Vandy, 35 of 46. So a lot of short throws. Ole Miss's defense is awful. I've watched them a few times. Like, they promote shootouts. So, like, if Will Rogers is starting, like, it feels better if KJ Costello is just ruled out too, right? I really want KJ Costello out. But even if so, as long as I see Will Rogers starting, I think I'm going to lock him in. Just my one YOLO dart, I gave you Sears last week versus versus Florida, who I think scored like 22 DK for like 4,700. I think going back to my Gators, who, look, the offense is so explosive for UF, and they score so quick sometimes, that just promotes shootouts, and the defense just doesn't look good. So Terry Wilson, dual threat quarterback, Kentucky does not want to throw the ball a ton, but Wilson is a very capable runner. He's actually played good against UF a few times. So 4,900, I really think is worth a shot. Maybe it's not a cash build, a lot of risk in him, but I think it's fine for GPPs. All right, let's go to running back. Harris, fine. Etienne, fine. Master Teague, fine. Actually, maybe a little bit more fine than the other two because of the price discount. But where I'm going to start my picks is back in Egg Bowl with Jerrion Ely from Mississippi. Look, he's just consistently good player. Gets a lot of the red zone work. You do have to worry about Connor stealing, one every once in a while, but consistent work. Gets a little bit of pass game works as well. Again, it's going to shoot out. You'd be shocked if he didn't get 20 DK. The guy that I'm most excited about, and I really just have to watch the news and make sure that we don't get any word that he's all banged up, is Chuba Hubbard, especially for some reason if Sanders didn't go. Great matchup versus Texas Tech. Look, obviously Kansas State and Oklahoma were tough matchups. He's not going to impress anybody from those game logs, but we know, those of us that have played college football for a few years, that Hubbard has just been one of the best assets to have in college football. And 6,600, Oklahoma State likely playing from ahead in a game they're favored in. It would be really hard to pass up on that price. Let me give you a couple others. So Haskins really did kind of control the Michigan backfield. I just don't trust Harbaugh, but I think 5,700 is fine. So the other thing I kind of want to bring up from the Egg Bowl is Marks, and who's the other guy? It is, see all the way up here, and Johnson. So they kind of are in a split, but Mississippi State doesn't run the ball a ton. So they're both probably looking at 6 to 10 carries, but each got a ton of targets. Last week? I think Johnson got 7 catches and Marks had 8. So, we're sub 6K. We're getting a few carries and we're getting 6 to 7 catches. That's really good and kind of nice floors with some upside and a potential shootout. So I like those guys. But the misprice and hopefully the 90, I guess hopefully not, but the likely 90% owned play on the slate should be Stevie Scott from Indiana. Look at the prices that we had to pay for him this year: 74, 65, 72. And just because he had one bad game versus Ohio State where Indiana was chasing the game the whole time, DraftKings jacked his price down 5,100. They're now favored versus Maryland. I think that they should be running the ball. 5,100 for a really talented running back is just too cheap. So definitely core play, lock him into your lineups. He's the guy that I truly do love on this slate. Going down, watch news, guys. Today, we got the UCF kid. I can't even remember his name right now, but he ended up being 3K when Otis Anderson was ruled out. Really ended up being an awesome, easy play if you had the room. You could pay up for different studs. You got to be watching that stuff, or you're going to be giving away edge. So again, I'll have that little Twitter handle that does a great job. I have no problem promoting him for somebody that's working their butt off. But make sure you're following that type of thing. Put notifications on if you're going to be playing seriously, because you got to know these news. So I'm not going to go into anybody down here. I know that there's a chance that I think there were some rumors that Funk might be out for Maryland. I haven't seen anything definitive, but watch out for there. Maybe Auburn. If Tank Bigsby can't go, maybe you get Shivers, or who's the other guy? Williams for cheap, but that's a terrible matchup versus Bama. So just watch. Or even the Kentucky guy, who was it? Rose. There's some cheap guys. I even kind of like Trey Sermon a little bit if you think Ohio State's just going to mash Illinois. He's always consistently getting 10, 12 carries. Not hard for him to get in the end zone for 3,800. So I think something like that kind of makes sense. All right, let's go to wide receiver where, look, I do not like paying up for wide receivers. If y'all have been watching these videos long enough, you know that. But, God, I have a hard time not locking in Elijah Moore this week. I can't remember a wide receiver putting up 59 and 55 DK. On top of having like 25 plus in every single game except for versus Auburn. And now we're talking about a game that, I'm joking about 120 points, but I'm also like not shocked if it happens. I just can't see fading him, and I think there's enough value to get to it. So I think Elijah Moore is just the guy that I'm just going to shove into my lineups and make the value happen because there's going to be some other value at wide receiver. So let's talk about it. So, like, obviously, if you want Devonta Smith, you want Wilson, you want Freifogel, you want Rodgers, like, all these guys are fine. I think in this range, a guy that maybe goes overlooked is Kyle Pitts, who was the top tight end, or it still is the top 10 at tight end in college football. Huge red zone threat. I think that Trask is going to really like getting Pitts back and definitely going to be looking for him. I expect at least 2 to 3 end zone targets for Pitts versus Kentucky. But going down, let me just kind of get a couple of the guys. Look, there's some plays in here that I'm going through that I'm passing. But I want to talk about a few guys. So one, Whoop Filer. Going into the season, people actually had him as Indiana's number 1. Obviously, Freifogel has just taken off, but I think the price on Filer has actually gotten a little too low for this matchup. So for 5,200 for a guy that has 6'3", 11, and 5 catches this season, I really like that. I think I'm going to be targeting him. In that same game, Rakeem Jarrett, one of the top recruits in Maryland football history, is now all of a sudden looking great now that Tagovailoa is playing well. But 5 for 144 last week, 6 for 68, 5,100 for a guy with explosive athletic ability, I think makes a ton of sense. And then back to the Egg Bowl. You can hear this a lot. Mitchell, look, he started the season phenomenal versus LSU, 7 for 183. Really good player. He's going to get, probably double-digit targets, 5,100. I really like that upside. I think those are the 3 guys in the main range. Now, as you go down, I think there's some really good plays as well here. There just might not be the best matchups. So, obviously, Seth Williams is the number 1 for Auburn. Obviously, you have Schwartz and Stove. They're all going to get looks. Look, if they're behind, they all should see a decent amount of targets. It's a tough matchup versus Bama. I think if I'm going to risk anybody in a tough matchup, it's potentially DJ Turner, who last week we saw just go absolutely ballistic versus Virginia Tech, 15 for 184 without Addison in the lineup. Addison, I believe, has already been ruled out. So, again, like 4,400, it doesn't take a ton to get there, especially if they're like shorter A-dot throws. But Clemson, man, I'll tell you what, that's a team that I purposely tried to avoid, getting too much exposure to them. I might do the same here. Josh Ali is somebody that I'm interested in. McGowan's actually have a few good games. Michigan State's awful. There's the Eli Stove. Yeah, there's a number of options down here. I think there was one more that I had written down. Let's see if I can remember. Let me see if I can go to my Smith 3,800. Oh yeah, it's from Louisville. Braden Smith. I don't know what happened to Atwell last week. Maybe need to look into that more. But he only had 1 catch versus Syracuse. Braden Smith now has 7 and 4 the last 2 weeks, so might be worth a dart versus Boston College. I think those are some good plays, and again, that can help you get more. Maybe you're going to not be able to get get a Najee Harris from Alabama, but there's plenty of other running backs that you can get there. Pay down at quarterback, and you make it all happen, guys. Hope that this helps. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, if you've made it this far, you really enjoy it, you haven't hit that subscribe button bottom right, do so now. Once again, Keith, a.k.a. Gator Guy 231. Good luck tomorrow. And with that, we say see you.